Good evening, good evening, good evening. Who brings you a breakfast fry up in bed on a Saturday morning and then tips it over the blankets because I didn't ask for fried tomatoes? Us, the Thursday American Scouts of TV, Thursday Night Podcast, ASTV for the cool kids, coming at you like the boil on James Tarkowski's ass, who we will talk about later. But we are here for a Thursday show. Three of us this week. We've gone from being the Baldles to being Cream, possibly the best power trio in the history of rock and roll, but gorgeous nonetheless. Brian, how are you?
Doing great.
Suzie, how are you now with the nice freshly shaven head? You look back to top form.
Doing good, thanks.
Yeah, I'm only saying that because I was jealous of the fact that you could grow hair. And before we go, because we haven't seen anybody since last week, happy belated Eid to everybody who celebrated. We hope you had a good time. And then Easter's coming up, so I will be twice the size as soon as I can start eating chocolate again. So that'll be just me on screen that week, and everybody else will have to squeeze in the little images down by the corners. But here's what we're going to talk about this week. We will talk about the game against Everton. And as a result of the game against Everton and the beautiful 3 points we picked up, we will talk about the rules of the game and how they are inconsistently applied or even disliked, as was the case on the Discord, if anybody is on that. And if you're not, you should be on it, because that's what the cool kids do. We will have a shorter Room 433. It's all open, all topics open. So we'll see. Actually, maybe not offside. We won't have to put that in because that's too hot of a debate for us. And then we'll talk about the game at the weekend. But, gentlemen, 3 points closer to the title. And I never wish injury on a player unless it's Declan Rice. Joey Barton, if he was still playing, because whoever scored against us in the last game. But Gabriel Magalhaes injured for the rest of the season, out for the rest of the season. Probably a big loss from our Arsenal. And I think it's like 3 or 4 games we need to win now, and that's it. It's done. Can't be caught. 3 games. I mean, that we're at one point cry-arsing about going out, not us particular, but just Liverpool as an international fan base about going out to Plymouth Argyle by going out to PSG and then losing the Carabao Cup final. But a league title in Arne Slot's first season with games to spare is a bloody good season, as Virgil van Dijk hinted at in his post-match interview. But we will talk about that when we get closer to it. We do have a game to chat about. Merseyside Derby. Here's my question for both of you. Go to Brian and Suzie. It wasn't a quality game, but it's never a quality game. I mean, we dominated, but a Moyes team is always going to try and stop you from scoring before they do anything else in the game. Even the kickoff that's designed to stop you from scoring, whichever team takes it. But we got through in the end, courtesy of this fine gentleman here. Doing an impression of me trying to hear somebody because I'm definitely right here. But a 1-0 win, a typical Merseyside Derby scoreline, but they didn't have a shot on target, Brian. So, it may have been frustrating in the watching live in real time, but in the heat of the real, it was probably quite comfortable, wasn't it?
I can't say it was really that comfortable right there. I mean, yeah, there was 0 shots on target, but they did have 5 shots, and they did actually go through and have a couple of decent opportunities. I mean, Beto came through and had a decent run in there. I mean, so these Merseyside derbies are never comfortable. I mean, it's like you're just waiting for it to tip off. I mean, and waiting for moments to happen and all that. But I mean. So I don't feel like it was a comfortable match. I think that it was a grinder, and I knew it was going to be a grinder because the way Moyes actually sets up. And I mean, even dealing with the injuries that he has and his squad at the same time, they didn't come there to play to get 3 points. They played there to get a draw because they know that's what they needed right there. They don't need to win matches right now. They are already safe. But you know what? Anything to dent the red side, that's the way their philosophy is because they're bitter, and that's what they always have been.
Suzie, as I said, I had to watch the first half after the fact. So when you watch a game after the fact, especially a tight scoreline game, kind of the emotion is gone out of it for you. You're not kicking every ball.
Yeah.
So you can kind of be a bit more relaxed about it. I think Brian is right. They did have some chances. They had that offside chance from Beto. Let's not talk about offside. But yeah, that chance from Beto that was called offside. But their game plan, we discussed this before we went on there. It seemed to me like their whole tactical plan was based on nullifying our central midfielders by getting close to them and not letting them do anything, especially as we have discussed week after week after week with the current state of exhaustion, even if there was a rest. For us, do we need, we discussed this beforehand as well. We did the whole show before we came on the show. That's how but do we need to change something up so that we can stop looking a little bit frustrated and looking a little bit less creative than we did prior to that, prior to February, March? Because we were never free flowing under Slot, but we were competent and efficient, and we gave teams to run around, and we're not doing that right now. So do you think, a change is as good as rest, as they say? Maybe Slot needs to look at something in the system just to perk the players up for at least 3 or 4 games to get us over the line.
Yeah, and definitely. I think prior to March, I would say like we had probably the best midfield trio in the Premier League, followed by Newcastle. And I think PSG, they laid the marker down on that. And, it could have been a one-off where our midfield just didn't perform, or, they're nullified out of the game. But then it happened again, at Anfield. And then, and then Newcastle, their midfield trio absolutely, trounced us, and, we can put it down to tired legs or whatever. And it probably is, I think it's a mixture of everything, lack of rotation in that midfield. And, there's a reason why the midfield's called engine room. And if the engine's not working, the rest of the team just doesn't work. And, we saw that that World Cup season where our midfield is non-existent, and we were just getting overrun all the time. And we're at the stage of the season where performance doesn't matter and results matter now. But he definitely, I think we all know that Slot needs to change something in that team, in the midfield for sure, whether there's one extra player in there or change of personnel. But we've also seen Slot just stick to his guns and is very stubborn in terms of the personnel changes, especially in that midfield. And so we're just kind of like playing into the opponent's hands. So, yeah, we'd love to see change, in the next game or, against Fulham, and give teams something else to think about, because right now that midfield is very predictable. And if you can keep McAllister out of the game, Szoboszlai out of the game, and Gravenberch he's going back to that form, or reverting back to that form he was last season, whether that's from just tiredness or just or he got found out, don't know. But we're really just playing into opponents' hands with that midfield.
Brian, we've talked before, Cozzy always says that he doesn't think Slot trusts his squad, and there's a case to be made for that. We can't read Slot's mind, so we don't really know whether it's that or whether there's some, like Mourinho used to have at Chelsea in those days, the first time around, and at Porto, we had a certain set of exercises that players had to get through before they were allowed to play in the first team. So we don't know what the machinations of it. The Occam's razor is that he probably just doesn't trust players in the squad. However, with the leeway we have, only needing 3 games to win, with 7-8 games left, we have a bit of leeway to play with. Is there a case to be made for Gravenberch and one of McAllister or Szoboszlai sitting out for the start of a game, and putting Endo in and maybe Harvey Elliott, something that's a bit different personnel-wise, different skill sets, looking for different spaces, making different movements that will trump, no pun intended, the opposition scouting, because they're preparing, I think, every week for the same three midfielders every week, and it'd be nice to see what would happen if he changed it up a little bit, wouldn't it?
Oh, absolutely. I'd like to see Endo come there and go into a holding position and invert this entire midfield right there. I think that Harvey and McAllister next to each other would be amazing. Because I think that you would still have the skill set and you'd have playmaking coming from Harvey in there. I think that would shake things up, because I don't think that people are used to having a Szoboszlai make these runs. To have somebody actually do something a little bit different, and to have Endo in the back right there holding that. And now, since we technically don't have Bradley yet, right there, having Curtis Jones sit in on that right back position right there, you're still actually adding yourself another midfielder, kind of in a way right there to support that midfield. So yeah, I think that we need to give different options to people, because we kind of turned predictable in a lot of ways right there. It kind of reeks of some of the early seasons of like a couple of years ago, where we had that same thing where we just had a midfield rot, and I think that's what's kind of happening at the moment. And I can't really. I think Gravenbergs is, like, I agree with what Sir Z said. I think that he's just overtired. I think we've the amount of minutes that we put on his legs, and coming from last season where he only played minimal amount of time right there, I think it's a big jump for him. And I think that you have to come up there and figure something out as far as like putting different personnel in there. Even if you want to go and, even come there and putting Chiesa in there in that number 10, in that 10 spot right there next to McAllister, something like that. Something to shake people up, because I think that Chiesa can actually go and do a job right there for this. I agree with Alan says right there too. Chiesa, Endo, and Elliott would be a great. It would definitely confuse some people, but I think that McAllister is kind of needed in our midfield. I think because of his work rate, and I think that's why more or less I'd probably lean on him over Elliott if we had Chiesa there, or vice versa.
So the thing about Curtis Jones, who had a fantastic game, by the way, is that he is capable of performing almost the same role as Trent Alexander-Arnold in terms of being that like hybrid fullback midfielder thing, not with the passing ability of Trent Alexander-Arnold, but putting him in there kind of frees up a midfielder from the pivot, doesn't it? From the double pivot, it kind of frees up a player that can be permanently in like a box-to-box midfielder instead of trying to choose the runs. And in that sense, two of McAllister, Elliott, and Szoboszlai, it does add a new flavor to the midfield for 1 or 2 games, doesn't it? Maybe having like Gravenberg or one of the two boys sitting on the bench looking at it might give them a few ideas, to see, maybe if I'll change that, because McAllister has great work rate, but I don't know if he has an awful lot of good pace. Whereas Szoboszlai has all the work rate, a bit of pace, but none of the finishing end products, like the passing ability of McAllister. And Gravenberg is such a hybrid of all three, but not a master of any of the trades. It's almost like we're playing with one midfielder who's been Voltroned into 3 separate people, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And just that, because they've dropped in performance, it's no coincidence that Salah's been off as well. And, he's not getting the balls. Like, he's just kind of disappeared over the last few games. And that coincides with the drop in performance in midfield. I think with Curtis Jones, he had a great game yesterday. But I think just listening to Slot's press conference, he kept making a point about Kwanzaa being great in that position as well. So, obviously we're going to talk about the Fulham game later, but I don't know if he's going to trust Jones to try and contain like Robinson down that right. So it's an interesting dilemma, and I'm glad like we're at this stage of the season where he's got that luxury to try and move things around, because we're in such great position. But like I said, we've got found out, and if he is as stubborn as he seems to be with the type of player, player wise, I don't know what that means for next season, but he really just needs to start trusting the squad. And it's I don't think, apart from the Plymouth Argyle game, I don't think Elliott's had a bad game when anytime he's come on. Same as Endo, and I just don't know what the deal is with Chiesa. It just feels like he's stereotyped each player or in his head, and Chiesa's not coming on unless something happens to Salah. That's the only way Chiesa comes on and plays, and so I don't understand it. But then we're top of the league by 12 points, so it's more than I do.
Big hello to Spencer there, joining us again this week, and Alan, of course, our loyal aficionados, which you all could be too if you hit the like and subscribe button on your YouTube channels and followed us on Facebook, etc., etc. It's what the cool people do, especially if they like fry-ups on a Saturday morning. Brian, in terms of the game yesterday, Curtis Jones I think he had a great game as a makeshift right back. Probably one of his best games in a while, and maybe because of the newness of the position for him. I'm sure he's played right back before in his entire career, but for the newness of the position meant he had to think a lot more. He couldn't hold on to the ball in the comfortable spaces that he's used to, so he had to be a lot more efficient, and he was. He did good defensively, especially that really good overhead clearance from that ball that was coming in late in the game. But another player who did really well, I thought, was Diaz. We'll talk about the controversy around Diaz. But again, I saw the second half live and the first half on repeat. And for what I saw, Diaz was being the Diaz we want, except for the lack of goals, obviously, which is pretty much the Diaz we get. But he was causing problems for that Everton defence, more so, I thought, than Salah. Overall, and then looking at the average positions, which I don't have the graphic for here, but the game was essentially centered over his direction. So it felt like we were either playing in that side of the field on the left side because Diaz, they identified a weakness there maybe, and Salah got isolated on the other side. Or maybe do you think it just worked out that they figured out that was, Diaz was having more joy, I think, against his man than Salah was against his, because Salah was very, he was very off, foot off the gas kind of yesterday. And a big game against Everton is a game you'd expect and want Salah to score in, but I don't think he looked like he was scoring at all, did he?
I think it also goes back to what we talked about with the midfield. I think the lack of they know what the threat is on that right side right there, and they shut it down. I mean, I think that if you look at who's on the right side is Gravenberch. It also goes back with Gravenberch's run of form. So I mean, that'd be the telltale sign. It's as we said right there. This game. This side right there it reeks of change. It needs to have something to happen, some kind of spark to go and to reignite it right there. Because I think even before the PSG matches right there, you could see our dip of form. You could see it happening. I mean, it's like what Kazi has said right there, that we're at the point right now where it could possibly be a crawl to the finish line right there with this side. So I mean, until we go there and until we see Slot go there and be willing to change, and he's Dutch, and we know how that goes. This is going to be probably what you're going to see. You're going to see these squeaked out matches like this. I mean, that's what's going to happen. I mean, and hopefully, I mean, I'd like to see Bradley. I mean, I see Alan's question about Bradley. Bradley was due back, I think, this weekend. I'd like to see Bradley get some minutes in here. I mean, it'd be nice with there to have him, but I'm not sold that he's going to play against Fulham. I think we're going to probably wait till probably against West Ham before we play him.
For the defense, we had a good performance from the back four. I think it was nice to see Kanate be Kanate. And Keller didn't have a shot to worry about, but any of the through balls or the long balls over the top, I think he dealt with them very, very well. He was active and he was alert and he was quick to get to them. But also on the possession side, he was really good at being where he needed to be to recycle the ball. Inevitably, it seems to come back to the Liverpool defence with the block that David Moyes had set up in front of the Everton goal. It seems to me that the backside, the arse of the team is working quite well. Some of the attack is working quite well, and it really is just that middle part of the game. If we could get that right, we'll have this game won or this league won in record time, maybe, with record goals even, and a high points total. But it just seems from working so efficiently up till around Christmas, it's now very disjointed. It's stumbling along, like different parts of the engine need different bits of attention, isn't it?
Yeah, and just need some fine tuning, and I don't know if it's a break or whether it's just a personal change. He just needs to just make that change, just rotate a little bit, and he can keep the same formation, but and just change the personnel, and we give the opponent something else to think about, because right now they know. If I was playing against Liverpool on Sunday, I know for sure I'm going to take out McAllister, Szoboszlai, and Gravenberch. So they're the three. If I can keep them quiet, you're keeping Salah quiet, and then you're just basically, up until Jota scoring yesterday, I don't think he scored all of 2025. It's, you kind of know the goals aren't guaranteed from the rest of them. So if Salah's not scoring, then the other three, it's a calculated risk that they're going to score, because they've shown that they can't. So yeah, it's, again, like we keep saying, and you've said this over and over again for the last few years, our midfield is probably our weakest part of the team. And as good as they've been this whole season, they're running on fumes still, and that can easily be taken care of, even if we just take one player out and have, like, say, Jones play for a couple of games back to back, or even have Elliott play, a whole game, and just give him that rest before it's something really bad happens. And when we're sitting with Arsenal with Gabriel, like, these players, they play so many games, and they're just like one hamstring away from the season ending. And even going back to Alan's question of Trent, who knows if he's coming back? Because that injury looked pretty bad. So I don't think that they have any. I don't think they're going to rush him back, especially if Baddy comes back before then. So again, same old story. That midfield, we need to strengthen it. And we've got the problem is we've got the players there. It's just a matter of Slot just swallowing his pride and just bringing at least, changing out for like a couple of games.
Greetings to Hassan there. Nice to have you with us. Now, let me ask this, because we've said this a few times, that maybe the players are tired, maybe they just need a break, but they've had breaks. So it can't be the physical tiredness, right, Brian? There has to be something more going on. Maybe it's mental tiredness, or as Barack said, maybe emotionally tired.
Mm-hmm.
It's a big push to try and win the league in general, but it's an even bigger one under a new manager. And then up till the Newcastle game, fighting on 3 or 4 fronts with a team that's only being put together, essentially. I know there's parts of it that are coming to the end of their cycle, but there's also a couple of new players that are, starters now. They're the key players in the midfield. They're the key players in some of the attack. How many times should we be making excuses for the players based on fatigue, and how soon should we be saying, you know what, the manager's doing a great job, we can't argue with his success right now, but he's a little bit stubborn? Well, I mean, we need to not have Klopp 2.0, which didn't look like at the start of the season, but we really need the next manager to not be as stubborn as Klopp was and not literally changing anything for any reason whatsoever, if he could help it.
You have to be flexible right there. I mean, that's one of the big things with tactics right there. I mean, we've seen him actually change his tactics right there between halves. I mean, in a couple of matches where we were like dire in the first half, come out in halftime, change, tweak some players, move positions, and move placement of players in the side. So I mean, you got to have more of that. The problem is right there is like Kazi has said right there, you gotta trust your squad. This is the tools that you have available. You have to trust them, and you have to go back and recognize when one of these tools that you have, like one of your your knife right there, is not sharp anymore. You need to go take it out, go there and go and sharpen it, and put somebody in its place right there to go and move it forward, get that rest, get that momentum back, bring that player back into the fold. And I don't think that we've seen this right there. I mean, it goes back to what we're talking about with Gravenberch and McAllister playing together. I mean, that I can't think of maybe of like the lower cup matches that we played that those two were not next to each other this entire season. I mean, so we are basically just running these guys down to the ground at the moment, and that's kind of what Klopp did right there with some of the players on the head. I mean, you can go back with Firmino, you can go back with Fabinho. I think really technically Fabinho was really run down toward the end because the amount of time that he was played and overplayed in there where we needed that time to sit and rest. I mean, I was hoping that we were to go into the season right there and not seeing any major injuries, and we're actually kind of lucky. We've only had a couple like niggly injuries through the season. I mean, it hasn't been anything completely major where we had a player taken out for months and months, and we're lucky about that, especially with the amount of time that these guys have played with each other. But yeah, I think that we have to go in there and you have to be forward thinking, and you have to know when your peaks and ebbs are. That's what we have. That's why there's physios there to see when mental physios and your physical and like your people who are there to see when the players are at their breaking point and need that swap out. And it just takes a manager to come there to not be stubborn to make those changes.
Just before we go into the last point of this part of it, I just want to point out to Alan that Lent has 2 more weeks, my friend. Palm Sunday. And then Easter Sunday. There's a bit more of that denial to go for those who celebrate Lent. Susie, before we finish off, I want to talk about not Liverpool, but Everton. And more specifically, I think it was a 9-game unbeaten run before they played us or something like that, or an 8-game unbeaten run. When Moyes was at his first press conference, the prodigal son returning, that whole shtick, coming back to Everton after bringing them so much success in 2005 in the 2000s. But watching the interview yesterday, he looks like he's ready to collapse, and it's only been 9-10 games or something like that. I mean, what does Everton? It really must be a poison chalice to turn a man who is excited to get back into the game and to, show, because he's a good manager, not a great manager ever, but for a certain level of club, like Roy Hodgson, a certain level of club, he's going to do a job for you. But he looks like he's ready to give up already. Like, he looks disheveled, like he's been sitting under the bridge under the canal with a flag in his cider for the last 3 nights, crying about his life choices. What is it about that club that just drains the life and enthusiasm out of everything?
The fact that Ancelotti went there and couldn't wait to get out probably explains it all. It's like Ancelotti is like, wait, one eyebrow of Madrid, I'm gone. It's just
he ran out of eyebrows to lift while he was there.
I know, it was just like, what? They're under the big shadow of Liverpool, obviously, and that success that we've had over the last few years, and even when Benitez was here, there's still, the only reason we got into the Champions League and Everton came above us was that we won the Champions League, so even though we came below Everton, we still outperformed them because we won the Champions League that season. So it's a big shadow to try and appease the fans and everything else. And their most important game is us, and we have higher expectations from our team. And playing against Everton is just like that little sibling that you have that's just getting in the way, and you just want to just pacify them. But the fact that the way they celebrated when they equalized against us and drew, that pretty much sums them up. And and yeah, it must be emotionally draining just to keep that, try and work with the quality of the players that they have. And they have some good players, but I think it's just like that whole support and everything else, and just and trying to outperform Liverpool, and you can't. It's going to be telling.
I think the main conclusion is, summed up by the great poet Emily Hughes: Liverpool are magic and Everton are tragic. I think that's as simple as you can put it.
Should have paid for it.
Talking about that 2005 Champions League thing, the way the rules were, the stupidity of some soccer rules, or the vagueness of it, or the inconsistency of it. So we had two incidents in the game yesterday, but we'll make it a broad conversation, Brian. The first one was this one here. It was the Diaz offside position. There was a lot of talk in our Discord channel about, the rule says he's offside, he's not offside, or he wasn't actively offside when he got the ball, even though he started from an offside position. And the discussion is around, whether he's interfering with play because the defender is aware of him. But generally, that whole, especially for me, at least coming up and doing the referee qualification thing way back in the day, was you're interfering in play when you're in the vision of the player. If the player behind him, as we discussed before, when I played as a youth player, one of the managers had a very simple rule: if an attacker is offside, don't do their job for them. Let them be offside and alert the ref. That's as we used to say, how's he, ref? Put your hand up and tell him that player's offside. Back in the day when it was a lot more strict, you just couldn't be offside. That was just the end of that. It was loosened, the rule, and it is causing confusion. You can see in the picture here that as the ball seems to be getting played forward, not to Diaz, I believe, Tarkowski's he's positioning himself because Diaz is there, but Diaz is clearly in an offside position. So if you're the defender and you're doing that job for him by making it vague, you deserve everything you get, as far as I'm concerned. But that's not the question we're going to talk about today, Brian. The question is, does this offside law need to be revised again to make it very much more specific? And given that the history of the offside law was essentially to stop cherry picking and stopping the teams putting forwards on the goalkeeper and just bomb the ball forward to them, and then eventually became so tight that goals per game were going drastically down, so they had to loosen it to give the benefit of the doubt to the attacker, a stated purpose of the changes to the offside law. But it's still vague. We're still arguing about it. We were arguing about it an hour before we went on air here on the Discord channel. I do not want an NFL-style 375-page rule book for soccer. 17 laws of the game. It's perfectly simple. It's why it's the most popular game in the world, and why kids in Tallahassee and kids in Liverpool and kids in Dublin and kids in Johannesburg can all play a version of the same game with the minimal of equipment. You don't even need a ball. Rolled up socks, a bunch of rags, or a Coke can if you're in school, like what we used to do, will make a game of soccer. That's its beauty. Are we in danger of wanting everything to be so perfect that we rewrite the rules to make them too specific? Or are we at the happy medium right now where the controversy is part of the discussion?
That's a touchy subject right there, because I do think it's subjective right there on this call. Obviously right there, which I think that we go into the issue with VAR with these same calls right there about going by inches of toes and fingers and stuff like that, where, in my opinion right there, the offside rules do need to come there and need to be altered to actually a clear advantage of the attacker. If an attacker is a footstep above the defender, and that's an offside position right there. But if a player is actually on an offside position, going back to the ball and going to an onside position prior to doing that right there, I don't think that's offside in my opinion. I know some people think it may be right there, but again, right there, you're still going back out of there That's on Tarkowski for what he did there. I mean, I'm pure and simple, and I was sitting there and listening to many pundits say the same exact thing right there. Is that he decided to come through and mark him right there, and that was on him. I mean, in essence, right there, the ball was not directly played to him, and I think that's the way it goes with him. I mean, it wasn't played to him, and I think that's. I know Slot Cantor say he doesn't like the rules, but the rules are the rules. I mean, it's what it is what it is. I mean, unless we come there and go to a full dedicated change of it, which I think the only change, in my opinion, with offside is VAR's version of offside right there, which is these minute inches and like things that don't make it, that aren't really clear advantages. There's no way that a toe above a defender is a clear advantage on the ball, in my opinion, or somebody's elbow or somebody's shoulder. It's not an advantage.
Now, let me ask you this, though, because it always seems to get missed in the conversation about offside. And I said it in the Discord, and it needs to be pointed out. The very first line in Law 11 is, it is not an offence to be in an offside position. And it seems to me that that's what people get hung up on. He's offside, but did he receive the ball? That's the first question. No, he didn't. Well, then it doesn't matter. Did he get in the goalkeeper's way while the shot was being taken? Yes, he did. Well, then that's offside, because the goalkeeper had no chance with that. If he was standing over by the corner flag in an offside position, then it doesn't really matter. This is the vagueness of it, though. So do we get hung up, Brian, and then do we get too hung up on the positional aspect? And a question that I used to ask parents when I coached the youth teams: are you sufficiently up on the laws of the game to understand what's actually happening in the situations? 99 out of 100 parents weren't. So that always killed that conversation. It was great. Then I could just go home nice and peacefully, even though we lost. But my question is, do we get hung up on the position and not what the rule is for?
Absolutely. I mean, it goes back to the same thing right there. I mean, if the ball was not directly played to him and he was in offside position, he's not offside. I mean, that's clear and simple right there. I mean, I think the only one would be right there is if he was in offside position coming back into onside position with the ball directly passed to him, which I believe that is considered offside, then that's offside. But if it was not directly played to him, it doesn't make a difference where he's at. He could be standing right there in front of Pickford. I mean, for all we care. I mean, as long as he's the side of him and not blocking the play, it doesn't make a difference. So yes, I think that we are definitely hung up on position versus what the actual offense is.
So what is your take on it? You said in the Discord channel, that we won the game. We're getting hung up on an argument about our player possibly being offside, but it does generate a lot of conversation, doesn't it? It does generate a lot of controversy. Obviously, we're broadcasting to the world, all 7 of them. We're broadcasting to the world, so we need things to talk about, and it's a good thing to talk about. But the game is over 100 years old. It feels like it's something that we should have nailed down at this point, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I mean, even if that offside rule, I mean, that rule has been in place for over 10 years. I remember a game where Djibril Cissé was playing for us, and someone passed the ball to him. He was in an offside position, but he jumped over it, and then the ball carried on, and we scored from it. And it was intelligent play. Even Djibril Cissé was like, "Yeah, look, I was thinking, and I didn't touch the ball."
We spoke about this. We spoke about this last week or the week before. Wout van Nistelrooy score or helped the United score a lot of goals, if you remember, where he would be in offside position and walk back because he knew he was distracting the defenders. But that's not the rule. The rule is that you can't distract defenders. Exactly. The rule is you can't get in the way and stop them from playing the ball, which didn't happen in that situation.
Exactly.
But it is something that my question is: do you think people either have to learn the rules properly, and a lot of people do, even players and even managers need to learn the rules, because sometimes they say stuff and you're like, that's not the law, you muppet, just because that's what you did in 1974. Harry Redknapp, I'm talking to you. Do we need, or do we need to make the rules a lot more precise? Do you think that might take away from the game?
I think people will change or interpret the rules how they want to interpret it for their favour. It's like that tackle yesterday,
which we'll get to.
Everyone say, but it's like, in the olden days that's a clean tackle, apart from the follow through. But no, we're not in the olden days, and it's just like when Abramovich took over Chelsea and he bought the league. It wasn't breaking any FFP rules because there was no FFP rules. But now there are. Man City are breaking the rules, and rules are there. Diaz did not break a rule. The rules there. Whether on purpose or intentionally or unintentionally, he took advantage of that rule, and it was to our favor. And I think April 12th now we're getting that semi-automated offside thing playing. So it'll be interesting, if that situation comes up again, whether they deem a player offside for being in that same position. But I don't understand the hurrah of it. The rules been in there. It's been over 10 years where, like you said, it was trying to make the game flow, more goals in the game. And, if Dia touched the ball when that ball was played to him, yeah, he's offside. Or if it was in Pickford's way, he's offside. Or if he blocked a defender, he's offside. But he didn't do any of that. So I really don't see what the issue is.
I just want to point out that, Ryan, yes, you are the world. So much so, Michael Jackson wrote a song for you. And Cyndi Lauper ruined. Now, here's what I want to talk about. We could discuss the offside rule for the next 3 shows on its own, but we're not going to. It's the inconsistency and the interpretation. So here's the next thing. It's an evil picture to show. But the problem with this one is not so much the tackle, as bad as that was, Brian. It's the fact that nothing happened from it. And next week, or when we're playing Fulham, one of our players may go into the exact same tackle. If that's physically impossible, or physically possible rather, we'll go into that we could take that exact same picture and just put a Fulham player where McAllister is, and a Liverpool player where Tarkowski is. That's Tarkowski, isn't it? Yes.
Yeah.
And that'll be a red card. And that's the problem, isn't it? There's just no consistency to what constitutes, offside, not offside, what constitutes dangerous play or not dangerous play. Did he even get a yellow for that?
Yes,
he got a yellow. Okay, so it was sufficiently egregious enough to get a stoppage and a card, but apparently not egregious enough to get a red card this week. But next week, different story, and that is definitely a problem, isn't it?
Absolutely. Every supporter in this entire league has been saying the same exact thing about the officiating in this year. I go round and round at work right there with my Man United co-worker right there about officiating, and he feels the same exact way because with us, we talked about right there, that was a red card. There's no question about that. And the thing that was shocking right there is, why do you put a very inexperienced official in a Merseyside derby? That is like beyond. Right there of why you did that. It goes with that. I'll even go with the whole thing about that. It's not even just that one there. I'll go with the Pickford versus Nunez part too, because that was probably freaking worse. So 10 seconds, I didn't hear it, but they blew the whistle 10 seconds ahead of the play, which nobody heard, and yet Nunez gets a yellow card after basically Pickford took him out. So again, we're going with this, but this is what you get for the PGML. This is what's been happening for this entire same time. It goes back. It's a rant I had for probably since I've been on this show right here about PGML. Ever since we came there and got the wannabe cop right there back in charge of this again, and ruling his little, making his rule, making the game more about him. So this is what we got. We've got officials right there who we know whose names are. I want a nameless official. I want somebody that just goes there and it's anonymous, goes there, calls a game, goes there, and then collects his check, moves on out of there. Don't make this freaking game about you, because it shouldn't be about you. And that's what we're getting right now. And it even goes right there with Paul Tierney right there in VAR. Did not come up there and recommend him to go look at the screen on the side of the pitch. Why is that there right there? That's what there for you to go look at these plays. And say, hey, you know what? This could be a chance. You might want to look at this. No calls, no anything right there. So again, like you said, next match right there, I'm going to probably see the same thing go, and that call will get made against somebody. Curtis Jones, prime example. I'm just going to go on that. Curtis Jones went into almost the same identical type of thing right there and got sent off. So where's the fairness with this? Where's the fairness at all? And then what do we get? We get a letter of apology from the PGML. Sorry, we messed up. The call was wrong. Kind of like we got against Diaz, against Spurs. Sorry, we made the wrong call. We apologize. It's enough of this crap right there. I mean, it needs to go back to a situation where the league takes charge of the officials again, not their own little independent little thing that they've been in. I mean, so. And if they make bad calls in the Premiership, don't send them down to Championship or League One or League Two. Get them out of there. I mean, go on. Get rid of them. I mean, Galley and I said the same thing about this. Why are you going to go there and put that funk down in another league right there? Get him out of here. He's not good. He's not good enough. Paul Tierney should be gone. Done. I mean, over with right there. This isn't like the first time this has happened right there with him. I mean, you maybe do a 3-strike rule right there. You make these bad calls, 3 strikes, you're gone. Go manage somewhere. Go do something somewhere else.
Send it to L2. That's what I say.
Yeah, absolutely.
And now, Suzy, just to point out that Howard Webb is not a wannabe cop. He was a cop for one of the worst police forces in the history of Britain. Well, one of two of them basically. It was either the West Midlands or the West Yorkshire Police. One of the two. It doesn't really matter. They were both scum.
I think it's West Yorkshire.
West Yorkshire, yes. Horrific police force. Well, at least if you were Irish. As the burning of 6 in the Manchester, the Guildford Ford, Manchester. But however, we're not getting political here tonight. So, 17 laws of the game. I believe, if I remember correctly, from way back in the day of doing my referee certifications, the first 6 of them are like equipment. So there's really only like 10 rules that are actually about gameplay, and 4 of them are about how to start the bloody game. That's it. Like, it's a really simple game. My question is, and I agree with you about, we can't keep going back to the old days because they don't exist and the rules have changed. How much has the rules? I just realized I was doing. I'm a little teapot there with my hand. How much have the rules changed, do you think, to chase television audiences to the detriment of the game? So that because VAR is definitely a television influenced rule. Because if you're in League 2, you may not have the money for VAR, so it's not there. So it essentially makes a rich and a poor level more obvious than it would have been beforehand. So how much do you think television has influenced the rules changes in the maybe a pursuit of the most sanitized product they could sell around the world?
I don't know if it was for television reasons, but I think there's so much money in that Premier League. And I think what was happening prior to VAR, there were some questionable calls, and them calls made the difference between a team being relegated and losing millions and having frontline jobs taken, or a team winning the league or getting to the Champions League. And the VAR itself is just a tool. It's whoever's running the tool, whoever's using the tool. That's what needs to be questioned. Yeah, it's like giving my 14-year-old the keys to a Ferrari. Like it's not. There's nothing wrong with the car. It's the driver, and that's what's happening. We don't. The VAR itself is just an innate object. It's just it's the idiots that are using it, and now you have to question the intelligence of the people using it, and in some cases credibility, like we saw with Coot. So I know you hear pundits, we don't want to question the integrity of referees and so forth, then the game is gone. But we live in a real world. We saw this with Serie A, the referees being bribed. It happens, and the English league or English refs they're not infallible to that. We don't know, what bias they have and whether the bias has come in or so forth. Because I know, like, Michael Oliver is not allowed to referee Newcastle games because he said he's a Newcastle fan, but that doesn't stop him controlling all the other games that may determine how Newcastle may end up in a league and so forth. So it's them days of just like blindly trusting that referees aren't corruptible or anything, that should be gone as well. And I think there needs to be a protocol in place even for that now, and that's the way the world's gone. There's so much money in this game and so much money to be made out of this game, and so many like jobs and so forth are reliant on this game that and VAR is just part of the system. It's never going to go. And it seems to work in other countries, for the most part. And it's like Brian said, like the inconsistency, like we saw with Curtis Jones last year against Bissouma, like, and his was less. It's like Curtis Jones' foot rolled over the ball and went into Bissouma's leg. This was just a point blank Street Fighter kick. I'm taking this player out. And if Tierney bottled it, he should have said, should have told the referee, look, I'm going to let you make this call. Go see the screen. And that's what they did with Curtis Jones. And they froze it at that point when Jones's foot was on Bissouma's leg to make it look even worse. And that's all they had to do with this. And that's the frustrating thing. It's the inconsistency of making the calls, inconsistency of when they should see the screen or not. And that's the most frustrating thing about VAR. It's not the tool itself. It's the people that are using it.
Controversial topics. We could talk we could go on for ages and ages and ages. Like that time I was stuck on the title after the Vindaloo, but we have other things to talk about. It's time for we've had a week, 2 weeks to think about, but it's time for Room 433 before we talk about the game this weekend briefly. We're going to start with Brian. Alan just says, "Go on, says he banned the corrupt referees, but they'll just send it to Scotland, and then Aberdeen might win it." Brian. Any topic? I'm gonna put a spanner in the works that it can't be the rules of the game because we just talked about that. So, what is your bugbear this week? What do you want to get rid of in Room 433?
The transfer rumor mill. That because it has to be the most shittiest thing that I think part of this game at the moment. I mean, we have seen so many fallacies, false truths. I saw somebody's airplane landing here at John Lennon, bringing this person on. I've traveled this person, followed this person in the airport. My friend's friend is friend of the kit maker and said this is going to happen. It's been an awful part of the game for many years. I think since mass media has really grabbed a hold of it right there, which is pretty much mostly my duration of being a Liverpool supporter, and it's done nothing productive at all. And so I think that the transfer rumor mill needs to go away.
So what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with him, or do you think there's a purpose to it at all?
I don't see how it'll go away. We're just gonna be it's a topic for people to talk about, and sometimes we get excited because I remember when we were watching Virgil van Dijk, supposedly getting on the airport from Bournemouth Airport to Liverpool, like people tracking it, like. Yeah, we can do without it, but I don't know if it's ever feasible. But I don't know. Transfer rumors have been around since I was a kid, and you just like kind of get excited when it's going for your favor. So, no, I wouldn't put it in.
Now, here's my question now, because Suzee's right. It's not a new thing. But back in the day, you had to call a phone number and spend 27 cents a minute to hear what the transfers were.
Yeah.
So they weren't always in the papers. Like generally, if a transfer rumor came into the paper, it was something that was happening. But that there was more freedom to buy and sell players in the 80s, 90s up to transfer windows. So I think up till March it used to be, wasn't it? It was you could buy players right up till March, and then for the last 7 or 8 games, you're stuck with your squad. So I mean, they do make the newspapers go round, Brian. It's on one hand, if we didn't have the transfer rumor mill, we would literally just have pages of stats and score lines and nothing to read when we're on the toilet after the Vindaloo. But on the other hand, we also, if we didn't have a transfer rumor mill, wouldn't have people like that Cop Talk guy that used to be on YouTube.
I was about to say him right there too.
What's his name? Adrian something or whatever.
And who went by Dunk and who went by all these other names.
Yeah. And would go on YouTube and go, my sources tell me that, and you're like, what sources? You're I think he's in or something like that.
Internet subscription-based service right there to shovel shit into people's mouths, basically. That's what it was.
It's a tough one. And the reason why it's tough is because the transfer rumor mill is the soccer equivalent of the National Enquirer. And my God, what is the National Enquirer? Whatever happened to Bat Boy? And if we didn't have a transfer rumor mill, we wouldn't know what was happening to the Neville brothers. They were the Bat Boy of transfer rumors back in the day. So I think I'm going to have to keep that one out because sometimes they're entertaining and sometimes they're right. And that's when they have some value. So got to keep this one this week, Brian. No win, no Ganya for you this week. No Ganyas for you. I don't know what this is, but so see that but you may be right.
Say arms and not arse.
Yeah, I was wondering there for a second until I figured it out. But what you're not seeing, Alan, is he's pushing his muscles up with his thumb like that. See, now I look like Richard as well. That's how that works. Suzie, apart from muscles, what do you want to put into room 433 this week?
Agents. The players' agents. I think they are the scum of the game.
Confirmation there was arms.
I think they're the scum of the game. I think they only look out for themselves. They're taking money out of the game because the players, they don't even pay the players don't pay the agents. Any transfer fee, the money comes from the respective leagues. So they're just making money hand over fist. They're setting up players to kind of do what, trying to get players to turn on the clubs that pay for them, the clubs that paid for the contracts and everything else, and then start stirring the pot and then overvalue players and just for their own means and their own pockets. I think the game would be a lot better without transfer agents. Or at least change the ruling of how they get paid and at what point they can, or at what point players can ask for a transfer and so forth. But yeah, I think player agents have ruined the game since they've come in.
Here's what my fly in the ointment is. I think you're right in the way that players are paid now, and who actually bears the brunt of how agents get paid is giving them license to try and make as much money as they can by moving players as many times as possible. But there are stupid players who probably need a guiding hand, at least in their contractual negotiations, so they don't sign their life away for 25 years and they have to play for Everton for that 25 years. There is some value to having somebody looking over your shoulder and saying, nah, maybe not, son. So, but what I would say is, before we ask Brian what his thoughts on it is, I would say more modern agents and high-level modern agents, because I actually know an agent and he's like a diamond. He works only with young players and gets young players like to get their first professional contract. So there are agents out there in the lower levels, I'd say, that are actually there genuinely for the players.
Or the super agents,
super agents.
Obviously, yeah.
Brian, what's your thoughts on it?
With super agents, absolutely. Mino Reala and Jorge Mendes, those type of agents, yes, absolutely. They can go to 4-3-3. But I see your point right there. You're saying, because some of these agents right there actually care for players right there. Especially when they're a young like 18-year-old right there to kind of guide them the right way. Because again, it's like any other thing. You'll get taken advantage of by how much of a factory that this is. Where they put players in, churn them out, spit them out, and then move on. I mean, that happens all the time. If you don't have somebody actually fairly representing you and looking at your interests right there at the same, and then it's going to be detrimental to the game overall. So I think right there, if you want to go with these super modern, the super agents, absolutely. But player agents are all together, no.
I think we put a condition of 4-3-3. I think so you're getting that as long as it's the super agents.
Oh yeah, definitely super agents.
The money makers, the pure capitalists. They are the Elon Musk of soccer finances. I think we could all say goodbye to them, because they really, at that level, you just probably need a lawyer and an accountant, and not somebody touting you. You just do that yourself. And if you're talented enough, somebody will give you a call anyway. You don't need a third party there to filter everything through. So I think that's going in. So well done, Susie. Super agents are in room 4-3-3. Brian, you're slipping. You're like the Liverpool midfield of room 4-3-3 this week.
I was going to open the back of the Daily Mail and read transfer rumors for the rest of the league.
Now let's finish up tonight by talking about the game. Fulham against Liverpool on Sunday, and Everton and Arsenal are on Saturday morning, correct? Or that's Saturday of next week for you, Susie. Next week in your time zone. Now, but so we will know what has happened there. On the Sirius XFM show Grumpy Pundits, Rodney Marsh thinks Everton's going to do Arsenal, because I believe it's at Everton. What's the name of the new ground? I've completely forgotten. Goodison 2.
Albert Dock or something. I don't know.
Something like that, yeah. But it's at Everton's new stadium. So Arsenal injury problems and the fact that they have Arteta as the manager, he's probably going to grill a steak in the team top before the game, or make some chili and sea bass with Parmesan cheese to show how the offside trap should work in the Premier League game. But Fulham at home, Craven Cottage. The time we went for the league under Brendan Rodgers, that game against Fulham at Craven Cottage, I think it was like a Monday game or something like that, or a Wednesday game, was like one of the most fun games, like, because it was just the typical Brendan Rodgers hectic. You score, we score, we all score together, but we're getting the last goal. A loss for Arsenal, Susie, and a win for us on Sunday, it effectively ends it psychologically for Arsenal, because they're probably going to go all out for that Champions League, aren't they?
Yeah, definitely. I think the game's still at Goodison. I don't think they move into the new stadium until next season. But yeah, I mean, definitely, if Arsenal lose and we win, definitely I think it's done. And I think, like I said, Arsenal are probably going to fare better to win the Champions League, even though they're playing Real Madrid next, then obviously trying to turn a 12-point deficit around with only so many games to go. I don't think they're going to do anything in Champions League either. I think they're going out to Madrid. But I think Arteta's probably going to try and put all his eggs in that basket. Now that they've lost Gabriel as well, it's just, things just aren't looking good for him at all. In that sense, obviously trying to win a league, so they might as well just go all out for the Champions League and see what they can do.
Brian, for us, we've already discussed, hopefully, wishing maybe against all logic that Slot will change something up to bring back a little kick of freshness for the last few games. But do you see anything changing realistically?
No, I really don't.
Jota has to start now, doesn't he? There's no way he doesn't start outside of injury.
He's the only natural finisher. He's the best natural finisher we have. So yes, he has to start. And I think that having him in and having Nunez come in toward the end of the matches right there is probably about what you're going to see for probably the duration of it. I think the only change that you could possibly see right there maybe be Gapco for Diaz. Maybe that might be the only change I really see in that front and in this entire side. I think the Endo basically is that closer that swap out for Gravenberg every time. The question's going to be right there, which I don't think that Bradley's going to be healthy. I think that Jones or Kwanzaa are going to be in that right back position. But that'd be the only question mark of this entire side. Other than that, right there, it's all the same. And I think Allison should be back right there because the concussion right there should be okay by then, I assume.
I would imagine it's 2 or 3 weeks for a concussion. We might not see him for 2 or 3 weeks because he has to get. I've got to assume he has baseline testing, as every professional player should. But was it on international duty? You got the concussion?
Yes, it was the first match right there of international duty. So I mean, so it will be going on 2 weeks. It'll be going on 2 weeks right there. Actually, I think. So I would assume that he's probably going to be back between the sticks.
I wouldn't be so sure now because it's not the concussion to worry about. It's always the second concussion.
True.
That's the damager. So it wouldn't shock me if Kelleher gets one more outing before West Ham. West Ham's the game after Fulham, isn't it?
Yes.
Yeah, maybe that'll be the game he comes back in. But Suzy, for us, you're right in that it's not about performance at this point. It's more about the points themselves. But you can't predict results as much as you can predict performances. So we kind of, if not stellar performances, do you think it would be unfair to expect some sort of consistency in the performance at least?
Oh, yeah. I mean,
consistently good, by the way, because they can consistently bad. We don't want that.
No. Consistency for sure. Like, just be professional. And like we were yesterday against Everton, and we really didn't give them any chances on goal. Apart from that one that hit the post. But other than that, it was a professional performance, or at least a competent performance by everyone on that team. And that's just how we've got to go into every game now. But then obviously going back to what we started off the show with the midfield, they need that. It needs to be. I mean, midfield needs to save itself from itself, and just by changing a personnel here or there, and just so we can have the likes of Salah get more of the ball, or even the strikers get the ball. Because if Jota didn't score yesterday, I really didn't see where we were going to get a goal from until we did score. And then after that, we know once we score a goal, we kind of just open up a bit, and and we take control of the game. But yeah, it's as long as that midfield can just hang on in there and just push it over the edge, and that's only going to come with, I think, with some personnel changes, because everyone else is performing at defense. We just don't need to concede. As long as we don't concede, the rest of the game can just try and take care of itself. But that midfield needs to be performing a lot better than what it has been.
It just needs something, doesn't it? Something in there to be different. If not personnel change, then maybe a slight formation change or something to get people back on their toes. First, before we get a quick score prediction, there's no morning coffee show tomorrow morning. Probably not a watch along this weekend. We'll get back to normal schedule next Monday when Tamuch comes back to take handle of the reins, etc., etc. But before we know anything about team news or last second injuries or anything like that, Brian, what is your feeling for the score for this game?
After watching how they played against Crystal Palace in the FA Cup, and actually how they played against Arsenal, they were beaten by Arsenal before that. That score actually flattered them because that last goal was in injury time. So I think that I can see a comfortable 2-0. I mean, I think that we'll control the match and get to and win the match. I don't see. This Fulham side's not that great. I mean, they're in 9th position right there, but they're not on the same level that we're at.
So, Z, what do you think?
It's like what Konata said. It just seems like every team just ups the game against us. I see a 2-2 draw.
2-2 draw. That's surprising. Do you think that for both of you, for the last point, do you think that the mood may change pre-kickoff and going into the start of the game if Everton actually do the job and beat Arsenal on the Saturday.
Absolutely. I think if Everton get a draw or get 3 points off them, we're just going to go in for the kill and just move and be done with it. I mean, and that, because I think pretty much at that point, if Arsenal drop points, and we get 3 points out of this, it's done. And there's no turning back. So, I mean, I think that definitely will. And I really think even if Arsenal win against Everton, I think that's going to have to spur us on to mind that gap. So I think either way, these guys have to be motivated right there to finish these next 3 matches, get 9 points, and I think we're pretty much done.
So, see what do you think? Will that game have any bearing on how the Fulham game's approached?
Yeah, yeah, for sure. I think if Everton get some points out of that, I think I will approach the game differently. I think definitely the players. I think the supporters will. It's a shame we're not playing at Anfield after that game, but again, we're playing Fulham. I think Fulham are one of them banana skin games, along with Crystal Palace at the end of the season. You know, and hopefully the league will be well and truly over and done by then. But Fulham make me just a little bit nervous just because of our previous outings with them.
Alan says, no, you didn't say 2-1 Liverpool. He says, what's your favourite coffee? It's the wrong question, Alan. Tea. Tea is the business. Especially if you're Irish and you're like me, you drink Keely Wally tea, as they say up north. So with that said, it is time for us to not drink coffee, but to go to beddy boys, at least over here on the East Coast. Sir Z is still stuck on it's
8 o'clock in the morning.
Get the Cocoa Pops.
or Cocoa Krispies, as they're called over here, stupidly, because it's a terrible name for cocoa. You can't sit around and go, I'd rather have a bowl of Cocoa Pops and people knowing what you're talking about. I'd rather have a bowl of Cocoa Krispies. Hasn't got the same ring to it. Although they're after me Lucky Charms. You can't have them. They're magically delicious. Didn't even have to change my accent for that. That's the great thing about it. But Brian says, I don't know why he typed it, because you could have just said it out loud. Cafe Bustelo, that's not a real thing. You just made that up. Where's the donuts? Anand's still eating them from last year. But for us, here's the important thing, folks. If you want to be a cool kid, if you want to be in the gang, if you want to be in the Sharks or whatever the other gang was called in West Side Story, you've got to do this. The Jets. Now we've just revealed Sir Z's secret. He watches musicals. You follow us on YouTube, like and subscribe. Follow us on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, X, whatever it's called. All the other social medias, Bebo, MySpace, and AOL Messenger. Follow us on them all, and then you'll get all the news. And especially follow us on the Discord. Come join the Discord channel and see the real madness. This is only the self-contained madness. This is the stuff we keep and sanitize for everybody and wash it like that clean coal under a tap. So we will see everybody next Thursday. It is time for us to go and grab some shut-eye. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the game. Up the Reds. Have a good one. Peace out. Let's hope there's funky music on the end of this.